No Dodger gain, but we have Dodger questions. We put out a call for questions. You guys answered. We're going to get into it. So let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. This is the daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers, and you can become an everydayer by listening or watching every day, which can be made easier by subscribing and being notified when our episodes are ready or when we're going live like we are here on YouTube tonight. If this is your first time listening or watching, I'm Vince Amperio, joined by my co-host, Jeff Snyder. Jeff and I are lifelong Dodger fans that have watched a lot of Dodger baseball in our life. We've covered the team in a few different ways, writing, reporting, and different things of that nature. We've been doing this podcast for a while now, about 5 years and change. We've been doing the Dodger podcast a little bit longer. So we've talked a lot about the Dodgers, and we don't plan on stopping anytime soon, and that's what we're here to do today. And there was no Dodger game. The Dodgers got another well-deserved day off after sweeping the Mets, and I'm sure that felt great for them to sleep in their own bed and, maybe hang out or whatever they did to enjoy the off day. And now they have the Rockies to welcome this weekend before going back on the East Coast. So with days there's no games, we usually ask for questions from you guys, insiders and on Twitter and anyone else that wants to participate alike. And we got some of those questions today. So, Jeff, I think we do have one insider they do get the priority. So we'll let them have that one.
Let's jump into that one. But first, did you know we hit a milestone recently, Vince?
I did not.
If you count this podcast, Locked On Dodgers, and our previous podcast, the Scully Avenue podcast, we passed 1,500 episodes last week.
Wow.
So you and I have spent a lot of time talking to each other over the last 8 years or so. It's probably been almost exactly 8 years. I don't remember exactly when we started in 2016, but I would guess it was about May. So, 8 years, 1,500 episodes and counting, and no sign of slowing down. So, our first question does come from Insider. It's Michael Castro. And he says, is it time to move on from Gavin Lux as starting second baseman? He's just not doing it offensively. He's a singles hitter who's hitting 200. I don't see the appeal with Lux. He doesn't hit for power, extra bases. And as a result, if he doesn't hit for a high average, he's not beneficial offensively. I think we're much better with Miguel Rojas at shortstop and Mookie Betts at second base.
It's obviously the question of the moment. And, the Dodgers, the report initially, which was never really confirmed or anything, was 150 ABs before they kind of evaluate. He's at 147, and right now he's hitting 204 with an OPS of 538 and, not 2 stolen bases, 16 runs scored. So, he only has 30 hits and, not that many walks on top of that. His OBP is 259. So, obviously if it was a hard out at 150 and that was the hard decision, then I do think you try to figure out how to incorporate other people that are playing better. And even, we've talked a lot about recently that Lux is playing better, but even that playing better is still a singles hitter at the end of the day. But he has, in the last week, he's hitting 261 has an OPS over 600 or over 700. Over 700. So he has been better in the last week. Over the last 2 weeks, a little bit worse than that, but better overall. And over the last 30 games, he's hitting 221 and 204 on the season. So he has been better since a really bad start. If you want to replace him, you can't really argue. But if you want to give him a little bit more time, which I think the Dodgers are going to do, I think that's where they're at right now, especially since there's not a lot to just go out there and get.
Yeah, when I saw Michael's question, I thought I'm going to look at the game logs, look at the last however many games, and have an answer. Well, in the last however many games, he's actually hitting pretty well. But problem is, like you said, the last week, if you go back to the last 7 games, yes, he's got a 711 OPS. You go back any farther than that, and it's back to being bad. And so I do think because it is the most recent week that he will get a little bit more time, just in case this week is indicative of him turning things around. Because if he could have an OPS around 711, it's not great, but when it's at least getting closer, and it is a sign of progress. And so, but if he over the next couple weeks struggles again, goes back to being lousy, I wouldn't be surprised if they do pull the plug. And I hope he starts hitting, because I'm a big Gavin Lux fan, as you know. But when we look at, like Michael said, Miguel Rojas is hitting better right now. And I do think part of that is because Miguel Rojas is, for the most part, being put in positions to succeed. I don't think Rojas hitting well means he should be playing more necessarily. Well, maybe more. I don't think he should be playing every day. I think if he's playing every day, he gets exposed as not being a great hitter. But I think they could probably find, like I said on yesterday's episode, at bats that are currently going to Chris Taylor are usually against left-handed pitchers. Give all those to Miguel Rojas. And, some of Kike Hernandez's, give those to Rojas. But, I feel like Rojas as a replacement for Lux is a challenge, because I do think that the pitchers who Lux is likely to hit, Rojas wouldn't be. And so if you're taking Lux out of the situations he's in and giving him to Rojas, I don't know you're going to get much better performance. Does that make sense?
Yeah. The one thing with Rojas, and I think someone brought it up in the last episode, and I mean, it's an interesting note that Rojas did go play in the Venezuelan Winter League this past offseason. We know he's been dealing with injuries the last couple years, and he never really had a full offseason. I don't know that he reinvented his swing, but more repetitions and having that full offseason, I don't think he's going to be, what he is right now over the course of playing every day. But, maybe he did improve and he can handle a bigger load, and it wouldn't really, have that drop off. So I do think he's probably earned that right to see if that's the case at the very least.
Yeah. And, at the least he puts the bat on the ball. And, like we talked about yesterday, he had that chopper over third base because they had to play in, and, he put the bat on the ball and something good happened. Your chances of something good happening are much better. Obviously every once in a while there's a double play, which is worse than a strikeout, but most of the time the things you do when you put the bat on the ball are at least as good as a strikeout, and often better. So,
yeah. All right. We're going to have some grades for the Dodgers, for some of the newcomers, but we're going to do that after. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL. The NBA has a week off, so NHL is a winner take all for the next week or so. FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Let's look at the Dodger game tomorrow real quick. And, obviously the Dodgers are heavy favorites to win. If you put $5 on them to win and they win, you get $150 in bonus bets. You wouldn't win much real money, but you would get that bonus bet money for sure. You have Shohei Ohtani plus 250 to hit a home run, Mookie Betts plus 400 to hit a home run. If you can guess anyone to hit a home run, it's usually going to be in the big plus money. But to record a hit, Ohtani and Mookie aren't going to win you much. Neither is Freddie Freeman. So there's different ways to bet their spreads, money lines, player props, same game parlays, all that type of stuff. So go download the FanDuel app and check it out. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every play count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. You can become an everydayer by listening or watching every day, which can be made easier by subscribing. And, you can tell your friends and family and other people about us, the other Dodger fans in your life, that, there's a lot of Dodger content out there to consume. Why not add Locked On Dodgers to that mix? Remember, you can go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. You can get text directly from us with any breaking news, thoughts, updates, rumors, all that stuff. You can text us directly with any questions or comments you may have, and you get priority for these mailbag episodes, as you saw with the first question. So make sure to go do that. And yeah, Jeff, let's get into these next questions. We actually put out a call on Twitter and we got some there. So one of them was about grades, and it came from Ed at Mr. Ed 315. He said, what letter grade would you assign the Dodgers so far this season based on record, pitching, offense, defense, and managerial? We wanted to take that a step further and kind of grade out some of the newcomers beyond that. So we'll start with first, just one letter grade for the Dodgers as a whole.
I'd say they're about at a B right now. Obviously, they're playing really well. Overall, they're in first place. I think they have the biggest division lead in baseball still. They're on pace for over 100 wins. You know, they're playing well, not as well as they should be, or at least as they could be. I do think the best is still in front of the Dodgers for this year. And so I'm not going to give them an A right now. But, you know, B's get degrees, and this B would get them to the postseason. I mean, the season in right now, they would be the number 2 seed in the postseason in the National League. So I think it's hard for me to go any lower than a B, but I definitely think that there's room to grow for this team.
Yeah, if you go on expectations, you can't go lower than a B unless you expected this team to be undefeated. And if you go based on how you feel about the team, then I can see if you would want to go down to like a C. But yeah, B sounds perfectly great for the Dodgers as a whole. They have had good stretches. They have had one bad stretch and a couple mediocre stretches. And over the course of the season, if you have more good stretches or longer good stretches than you do the bad or mediocre, then you're going to be in a good spot. And I think the Dodgers have their best baseball ahead of them at the end of the day.
Yeah, and it's nice that they swept the Mets and now they get to play the Rockies. And so sometimes that's what it takes to get on a roll. And then, you know, they have to play the Yankees soon. And so it'd be nice to get on a roll before then and have some momentum going in. But that'll be an interesting series for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, Shohei Ohtani, the big offseason acquisition. Let's give him a grade real quick.
I guess it's hard to say because, I mean, they signed Ohtani for the long term to be a hitter and a pitcher. So far he's only doing half of that, but they knew that. So if we're grading on the expectations for Ohtani this year, I'd say it's basically roughly an A. You know, there's been inconsistencies, but overall you look at his numbers and he is playing at about an MVP level. And I don't know that they could have hoped for much more than this, even though he, like the Dodgers, I do think that his best days are ahead of him this year. But even if he played the way he has so far the whole season, that's an excellent season. That's, you know, 8 or 10 WAR. And it's hard to hope for much more than that. So yeah, I'd say the Ohtani signing is an A so far.
Yeah, it's hard to give it anything other than an A. Just it's one of those where the journey is a lot different than the destination. The destination right now is an MVP candidate. The journey has been a little bit of a roller coaster, but you know, you can't. At the end of the day, it's what the grade is at the end of whatever you're getting to. So if you know, I remember when I went to college and my first gauge, I was in semester. So my first gauge of, do I even need to buy the book for this class was the first test. If the first test I did well, then I probably don't need the book for the rest of the class. The first test I didn't do well, then I probably had to get the book and then pick my grade up. So it doesn't always go linear. You know, sometimes you just go a different way.
It's an interesting approach to college. I mean, you graduated more quickly than I did. So it took me 19 years. So my approach of only going to class once in a while wasn't much better. So.
All right. Next big acquisition, Yoshinobu Yamamoto. What's the grade there?
Maybe an A minus, maybe an A, somewhere around there. Obviously that first start happened and it was lousy. And I guess again, it comes down to your expectations. I don't think we necessarily expected him to be the Cy Young winner this year. I think we expected him to be a very good 25-year-old pitcher, and that's what we've seen. So I think if he plays the rest of this season like he has so far, that's a great season. And grading the whole contract in the future, I do think the Dodgers expect him to be a little bit better in future years than he has been this year. But for his first year, so I'll go with an A minus because he was the best pitcher in Japan and coming over, and he's only been, probably one of the top 20 pitchers in Major League Baseball, something like that. Maybe even top 30. There's been a lot of guys who have been surprisingly good that, Seth Lugo and guys like that, like, are they going to keep that up? But so, yeah, Yamamoto, I'll give him an A-.
Yeah, I guess it just depends. People are going to look at the 3.51 ERA and you're going to be like, and then you look at where he lands. And I think he's top 25 in the National League only in terms of ERA. But, it's a little bit deceptive. That first start counts, but that first start is hard to, again, it goes back to when you're in school and usually, depending on the teacher, depending on the class, your worst quiz or test score can sometimes get thrown out, or if they grade on a curve or whatever the case is. I think that's kind of what you treat that first start as is, hey, you know what? That's your worst one. Let's throw it out. And, you're looking pretty good beyond that.
Yeah. I just got to interrupt for a second. One of my favorite things about these live episodes is every night getting somebody reminding us that the team that the Dodgers just beat isn't a good team. It was who was on the schedule. We say it a lot. You can only play the team that's on your schedule. They stopped letting the Dodgers make their own schedule about 180 years ago. So until they let them start making their own schedule again, they're just going to beat the teams that are on the schedule, and we're going to be happy about it. So.
Yeah, you can't beat anyone that you're not playing.
Yep.
All right. We'll kind of put the next two together to they're not as in depth. Teoscar Hernandez, James Paxton, both other signings that were there to fill a role, and they filled that role.
Yeah, it would be weird to give Paxton as high a grade as Yamamoto. You'd have to be grading on the curve, but that curve is the expectations. And Yamamoto was signed to be ace or ace adjacent, and Paxton was signed to be a solid number 5 starter. And that's basically what he's been. The walks and lack of strikeouts, there's no way I can actually give Paxton an A-, even with the expectations. I'd say, maybe a B- ish for me for Paxton. And then for Teoscar, I'll give it this one, like, he's so streaky. And so on one day I'd be like, man, that's a D. Other day I'm like, that's an A+. And going back and forth, he's sometimes I wonder if he's ever going to get a hit off a right-handed pitcher. And then sometimes he gets on base 9 straight times up, mostly against right-handed pitching. So yeah, I'd say Teoscar is a B+.
Yeah, he's one of those where, again, it's the end result. And the end result is an OPS over 800 with, close to or team lead in RBIs, bringing that power and, hitting relatively well in terms of batting average on top of that. And, compared to years past, the difference between his average and on base percentage is around the time when he was really good. This is how he was hitting and how he was getting on base at this clip, similar to where he's at now, maybe a little bit lower, but still. Again, when hits your number 5-6 hitter, again, same with Paxton, number 5 starter, you expect a lot because you're a Dodger fan, but you gotta kind of scale it down to what they are.
Yeah, the only thing dragging down Teoscar's grade for me is so many strikeouts when strikeouts are a big problem for this team. It's kind of funny, and I shouldn't be that way, but if the other guys on the team weren't striking out much, then Teoscar's grade might be a little higher for me because his strikeouts wouldn't be exacerbating another problem.
Yeah. So, all right. That's enough for grades. We got more questions. We're going to answer them. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Stitch Fix. That instant confidence boost you get from an outfit that makes you look really good. That's what you can get from Stitch Fix. Easily upgrade your wardrobe this year with a professional stylist that helps you find new on-trend favorites that will work for you. Summer's coming up, and summer's a time to look good. You can wear a little bit less, but you can shine a little bit more. And all you got to do at Stitch Fix is give your stylist a size, style, and budget preferences, and you get boxes delivered when you want and how you want. No subscription required. They send 5 just for me pieces, plus outfit recommendations and pro styling advice. You keep what works and send back the rest. There's really no downside to it. Stitch Fix makes it all so easy because if you're someone who doesn't like to shop or doesn't have the time to shop, Stitch Fix can do it for you. It's like having your own personal stylist, and you can look really good. So go check out Stitch Fix, style that makes you feel as good as you look. Get started today at stitchfix.com/MLB and get $20 off your first fix. That's stitchfix.com/MLB for $20 off. stitchfix.com/MLB. Rest redeem within 7 days of signing up. I want to thank you for being an everydayer. If you are one, an everydayer is just someone that listens or watches every day. They are the backbone of Locked On Dodgers. We know there's a lot of everydayers that are here when we go live. We appreciate you guys. There's a lot of everydayers that listen the next morning. There's a lot of everydayers that listen on the way to work or on the way home from work or at the gym or wherever you listen to. We don't really care where you listen. We just want you to listen and become an everydayer. So go make sure to do that. And if you watch on YouTube and then you're done with our episode, you can always go to Locked On Sports Today or Locked On Sports Los Angeles. Those are two 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network, bringing you the biggest news and stories from around the sports world and LA sports world. And on Locked On Sports Los Angeles, you can find Pete Fox after almost every Dodger game. And I heard Jeff's going to be doing some of those coming up, right? You're going to be doing some Locked On postcasts?
I think I am. I think Pete has a vacation coming up sometime soon.
Here we go. So yeah, you'll get a double dose of Jeff for sure. All right, let's get right back.
Threat?
No, that's a good one. Everyone has their fans. All right, this question more for you, probably. I think I know the answer, but you probably know. From Cali Berge at NXS Kick, he says, if someone is DFA'd by the Dodgers and signs outside the U.S., such as an MPB or KBO, do the Dodgers still have to pay the remainder of their salary?
Well, once upon a time, I thought I knew the answer to this, because when the Dodgers did release, what's his name? Trevor Bauer, after he was reinstated, they still owed him money. And I reached out to a guy I know who is an agent for major league players and asked him the rule on that. And he said that there is a reciprocity rule between Major League Baseball and those foreign leagues that basically the same thing would apply. Because obviously if Trevor Bauer had signed with the Mets, they would have only paid him the league minimum, because he's getting paid the same amount either way, because the Dodgers are on the hook for whatever the Mets don't pay him. And so if somebody had signed him for $7 million, the Dodgers, that would have saved the Dodgers $7 million, which is not why no team would have done that. Then Bauer did go to Japan. And what I read was that the Dodgers didn't get any salary relief, even though Bauer did get, I forget how many million, but it was millions of dollars went from the Japanese team he signed with. And that didn't affect what the Dodgers owed him at all, from what I read. And so either the article I read was wrong or the agent I talked to was wrong. And I haven't been able to get a conclusive answer on that. So unfortunately, the answer I have for you is I'm not totally sure, but I get the impression that that only applies to Major League Baseball. And if they go foreign, then it doesn't help the Dodgers out, give them any salary relief.
Interesting. All right, cool. All right, next question from Kevin at BlueGoon82, our buddy. He talks about Gavin Stone being great so far, but he has options, which might come into play when Bobby Miller comes back. If the Dodgers don't go to the 6-man rotation, do we think Stone is the one that gets optioned down to limit his innings?
I don't think there's any way Gavin Stone is going down. Obviously, unless he is really terrible his next start or two and before Bobby Miller comes back. I think Gavin Stone has proven to be a legitimate major leaguer. And while, yes, he has options, I think he's beyond that point of he's not in the JP Fireeisen category of pitching well, but he has options. So we're going to set him down. I think he is, or even the line in that category. I think Gavin Stone has established himself and he is a part of the Dodgers rotation. Most of the time, I think the most likely outcome when Bobby Miller comes back is somebody goes on the injured list. Something else that you and I talked about before we hit record last night, but I don't think we really dug into it on the episode, was that maybe James Paxton going 3 innings yesterday was kind of a, let's see how James Paxton handles in a, opener / long relief kind of role. Do we think he could do that every 3 days, go 50 pitches every 3 days instead of 100 pitches every 5 or 6 days? I wouldn't be surprised if they are auditioning James Paxton to fill that role. But have him be the one who gets bumped out of the rotation when Bobby Miller comes back.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference with Stone compared to some of the other young pitchers in regards to limiting innings is Stone's already thrown he threw 120 some innings in 2022. He threw, I think, over 130 or 40 last year. So like he's not in a spot where they really need to limit his innings. He can comfortably make that jump up to 160, 175, whatever they would need out of him or whatever he can throw. So it is interesting because, again, there's been times in the past where the option is the reason that some guys go down. But like you said, I think he's pitched beyond that and is a legitimate part of this starting rotation right now. And realistically, you think towards October, and Gavin Stone's more likely to start a game in October than James Paxton. So,
yeah. And that kind of leads into our next question from Eric the Dub at Eric the Dub 2. He says James Paxton is becoming the Dodgers' best seedling point. Seedling? I don't know if that's a typo or if that means something. I don't know. But basically he's saying, is James Paxton a trading chip? Is he, if there's a contender that, hey, you need, we need a starting pitcher, you need what you need, and we have extra of that, could the Dodgers do a contender to contender trade and use James Paxton to get something of value?
I wouldn't put it past them, especially, you're getting, if all goes, it's weird because the last couple of years, it's been one of those where they've put a couple of their eggs in the basket of guys coming back, and then those guys don't come back. This year, you have the full, like when Miller comes back, they're going to have 6 legitimate starting pitchers, not counting Landon Knack, who has proven that he can hold his own in the majors. And then you're expecting, Kershaw to come back and Dustin May to come back in some capacity. I don't think a starter. And then, some of the other guys. So if there's a way for them to flip Paxton, I don't see them not doing it, especially considering, like, at that point, if you're in July and James Paxton hasn't missed any time yet, you might be playing with a little bit of house money.
Yeah, other teams would probably know that too, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're not going to, again, the worst starting pitchers have gotten traded for, less than stellar or better prospects.
Yeah, the Dodgers traded Ross Stripling just because they had a surplus. And I mean, the Dodgers won the World Series that year. They were a contender and, even traded him to the same team that Eric the Dub was actually asking about if Paxton could be involved in a Bo Bichette trade. So,
yeah. Roy mentioned here, no Paxton pitching the playoffs. If James Paxton's pitching the playoffs, something went really right or really wrong.
If he's starting a game, if he's coming in, throwing 2 innings when we're up 6-1, great, Yeah.
All right. Trade deadline, like you mentioned, is a big part of it. We have one from MV Pat Rando Mac 992. Says, which would be better, trading for a shortstop, moving Mookie to right, and have one platoon guy in the outfield, or keeping Mookie at short and trading for an outfielder?
Honestly, I think it's whichever option has a better player available at the right price. That's one of the benefits that the Dodgers have is they don't have to just say, oh, we need this position. They could say, okay, who's the best player available? How can we make him fit in? And there's a good chance that they'd be able to make him fit in. I personally, I think that I'd rather, like, I don't hate the idea of Mookie moving back to the outfield. I'd rather have him, if he's going to move, just move back to second base if they were able to get a shortstop. But I also, if they, right now it's late May. It's hard to know who's going to be available. So, we don't even know. Everybody's talking about Bo Bichette. We don't know if he's available. Talk today was about Francisco Lindor. I love the Francisco Lindor idea. If the Mets are willing to pay a bunch of that contract, he signed for 7 more years. For me, it would have to be the Mets are paying enough that the Dodgers can just cut Lindor if and when he gets bad, because I don't think they want to play him for the next 7 years. But if they can get him for $12 million a year, if the Mets are willing to pick up the rest, which I don't know if they would be. Steve Cohen is different with money than most owners, so who knows? But if they got Francisco Lindor, then you either evaluate what's our better option now: Mookie Betts at second base and Lux out of the lineup, or Lux involved in the Lindor trade. I don't know, or Mookie back in the outfield, and So I don't know that I have a preference among all of these. I just want them to make the moves that make the team the best.
Yeah, and that's really like the Dodgers are in the position for best player available. You're not going to go get a first baseman. You're not going to go to get a DH. and you're probably not going to go get a third baseman. But other than that, every other spot you can go get somebody, and you'd find an upgrade for it, whether second baseman, shortstop, outfielder, it's best player available, or catcher, obviously. So 4 spots you're not trading for. Everything else kind of fair game and open to it. So we'll see. Again, I don't think Mookie wants to go back to the outfield, and I think they're going to try to accommodate him if they can. They know that Mookie will go to the outfield if they do. Let's say Lux does start hitting, and then they do go get a shortstop. Then Mookie's going to have to try himself back out there to right field. But at the end of the day, they're in a spot where they can just go get whatever's available.
Yeah, one thing, I see some comments in the chat, and I've seen a lot on social media about the Dodgers needing starting pitching at the trade deadline. I don't see that. I feel like they got Glasnow, they got Yamamoto. That's 2 solid starters for the postseason. And then you look at what they have beyond that. Gavin Stone has been really good. Bobby Miller obviously has potential to be really good. Who else is in their rotation right now? There's Paxton, and who's the 5th one that I'm forgetting?
Who's Stone?
Oh, Buehler. Walker Buehler. Yeah, he has a history of kind of being a good pitcher, and so obviously there's still 2 months to see how is Buehler progressing. When Kershaw comes back, see how he is. I don't expect Kershaw to be one of their 4 postseason starters, but they've got Landon Knack down in the minors. If I feel like the Dodgers, I feel like starting pitching is pretty low on their list of needs at the trade deadline.
Yeah, it's one of those where people are like, oh, we need 4 legitimate. Like, yeah, you can have 4 legit starting pitchers, but it doesn't mean anything. Last year the D-backs made it with 2 legitimate starting pitchers. Brandon Pfaadt stepped up and became a pretty good pitcher, and they didn't even really have a number 4 guy. Like, I don't even remember who they were trying out, but every year the team that makes it, you don't even remember who their 4th starter is, and you kind of maybe don't remember who their 3rd starter is most of the time. You need everybody to pitch well at the time, and that's really what it comes to.
Like BC said, you need the offense to show up.
Well, yeah. Me in the offense in October.
I just want to bring that up to see your eyes bulge out of your head.
Yeah, me in the offense in October. So, all right. I think that was all the questions. Oh, no. One more question real quick from our buddy Kevin about Miguel Vargas. Does he get an extended look there in the outfield?
I think he's going to get more playing time. It's hard to say who the odd man out is. Obviously, Chris Taylor's the easy answer, but that's only easy for us who don't have to figure out the logistics of it. So, I do think Vargas has earned a little more playing time.
Yeah, he's going to start every time against a lefty, and they're going to try to find spots for him to get in against a righty. And if he continues to hit, and Andy Pajes or other people don't, or Hayward or whoever, then they'll figure it out.
Yep. Hey, the guy who hates us is in here. Thanks for watching every day, Takata DJ. You're our biggest. What's the opposite of fan? Somebody who watches every day so he can hate what we have to say. We love it. The stats count the same.
I'm sure for a fanatic, so it's just a different.
That's true.
Different.
Yeah. All right. He'll call him a fanatic.
All right. All right. That's going to do it for today's episode. That's going to do it for this week. Just a heads up, next week, I'll be doing Monday's episode, and then Jeff's going to take over for the rest of the week. I'm going on vacation. So, I'll be here. I'll say goodbye to you guys. And the next time Jeff is on here, he'll be a year older. So,
yeah, I will. I'll be the big 4'7".
Wow. Howie Kendrick coming back. All right. That's going to do it for today's episode. Thank y'all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. Make sure to find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Make sure to become an everydayer by listening or watching every day. Make sure to subscribe to make that easier and get notified when we're going for you. If you want to get a hold of us, you can find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff's on Twitter at Snydog. I'm at Vincent91. Remember, you can go to YouTube and go to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, 2 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network. You can also go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers and get text directly with us. And you can email us, lockedondodgers@gmail.com. You can leave us a voicemail or text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car, if you're at home, turn your smart device, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you next week.